What's going on, guys? In this video, we're going to be looking at the Bravo Studio no-code builder. And this tool works completely different than pretty much all the other node tools that you've seen before and that I've covered on this channel. And so by the end of the video, you will have to make a choice whether the way it works is something that you like, something that you agree with, or something you do not agree with. And I will let you know at the end of the video my personal opinion and some advice. And so this video is going to be divided into three parts. In the first part, I'm going to explain to you the architecture of the Bravo Studio, how it works, how you can build apps, some of the intricacies, stuff like that. Then we're going to go out and we're going to build a very, very simple app just to show you the workflow. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to be giving you my personal opinion, things that I like with this tool, things that I didn't like with this tool, and overall how I feel about this tool. Is this a tool I'm going to be using? Is this a tool I'm not going to be using? Stuff like that. So you definitely want to stick around until the end because this is a very, very special tool. And you should know some of the capabilities that you're presented by this tool as a user that will allow you to build amazing apps. All right, so let's begin. All right, so here we are on the home page. It says build no-code mobile apps faster. Your powerful native app builder for iOS and Android. Create MVPs, validate ideas, and publish on the App Store and Google Play Store in no time. So the first thing you have to realize is this is a mobile-first builder. In fact, this is designed for mobile apps. You're going to be essentially testing your app using your own phone, okay? And so you can kind of, read about how it works. There's videos. Lots of apps have been published. There's a little bit of a UI. It gives you kind of a diagram and stuff like that. And so why don't we make it easier and why don't we log in into the tool and I can show you exactly how it works, all right? So here I am logged in. I'm using the free account. You can do the same thing. You don't need to pay. They have a free plan. And here we have apps, we have API collections, and we have sample apps, okay? These are the main three tabs. And I don't have any apps right now. I haven't built an app yet. We're going to do that in just a little bit. And so I am seeing 0 apps. I'm seeing create a new app, all right? So let's go into API collections. Here I have a sample collection. I can create a new collection. This is where we're going to be getting data from. And here we have sample apps, okay? So if you are building an app and you don't know where to start, probably a good place to start would be the sample apps here. Because look at all these kinds of apps that you want to build. And a lot of these apps I've built on the channel before using all kinds of different tools. So this is a really, really good place to start. In fact, if you open a home BNB, you can see how the app looks like, right? It's an Airbnb kind of clone that you can use as a starting point for an app that you want to build. All right, so assuming I want to build like a sample app, a really, really simple app using an app template, I want to pick this. So this is kind of what I have. This is my template. And I'm going to say duplicate because I want to duplicate this template into my account. And once I do that, it's now here. See, if I click on apps, I have this template here. This is the project that I'm working, my app that I'm building. And so the first thing you have to understand about this tool is that you do not design anything in this tool. You do not build the screens. You do not build the elements. You do not build the buttons, the containers, none of that. You use another tool for all of that called Figma, okay? And so that means you're going to be using two tools, one for designing and one for actually finishing up the app and kind of putting in data and actually running the app, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to cover the basic architecture of how you go out from designing the app to actually running and launching the app. So the first thing that you do is you design your templates and your UI in a completely different tool called Figma. This is a very, very popular tool. We're going to go there in just a second, but you're not going to be doing this in Bravo Studio. You're going to be using another tool. Now, inside this tool, you're going to add various tags to your templates, okay? And these tags are going to specify how different elements interact with each other. These are going to be little hints to Bravo Studio how everything works, how, what happens if you click on the button, what happens if you mouse over, all of kind of the little logic things, they're going to be accomplished using tags. After that, you import your templates into Bravo Studio. Basically, you import that whole project into Bravo Studio. Now, inside of Bravo Studio, you add the data sources. Remember, at this point, you only have the templates. I mean, you can preview the app, but it's not going to have any data. It's not going to do anything. So you need to add your data sources, okay? And we're going to get to that in just a second as well. After that, you preview the app on your phone. You actually take out your phone and you preview the app. So you're not previewing the app on the screen. You're actually running it using an app, which is kind of nice because you can see exactly how the app behaves. And then you launch the app. All right. So now that you have kind of, your basic understanding, your basic workflow, let's go ahead and complete each of these steps and see what it takes to build an actual app. So here I am in Bravo Studio and I opened one of the sample apps here. And if I want to change something and I want to change the design, I want to modify something, what I need to do is I need to open the original Figma file. So if I click on this, I'm going to be redirected to a tool called Figma. That's going to display all the templates. Okay, so this is that sample file, and I cannot modify this file. For me to modify it, I need to click here, and I need to say duplicate to your drafts. Okay, once I do that, now this file is part of my own projects, and I can modify it and do whatever I want with it, and then import it into Bravo Studio. First, I want to talk a little bit about Figma. Figma is a very, very popular tool for designing UI, for designing user interfaces, okay? And this is an amazing tool. And just to show you what it's capable of, right? If I go back to the files, I go back to the front page, right? This is the draft that I duplicated, meaning now I can edit it. So now I can click on it, and I can load it, and I can see this actual template that I was built. And essentially, these are a bunch of screens, right? There's some instructions here. There's a bunch of components. There's some app icons. And really, these are a bunch of screens. So for instance, this is a screen that displays a list. This is a placeholder, kind of a skeleton. And I'm sure you've seen that before when you're using an app and it's basically loading it, right? You kind of see a skeleton, which is kind of cool. Here we have another screen. In the sense, it's also a list, but it's going to be kind of a grid format. We also have a skeleton, which is kind of what, once the screen loads, how it's going to look like. We have a modal, which is kind of this dialog box that pops up. And we have a bunch of other screens. And so essentially, Figma is a very, very powerful tool for building UI interfaces for apps, okay? There are many, many things that you can do with Figma, and maybe I'll cover that in a future video. But I just wanted to show you the possibilities as it relates to Bravo Studio. Now, after I finished building my screens, designing my UI, adding all the elements, things like that, things that you would typically do whenever you're building an app, the next very, very important thing is that you need to add tags to your screens. So if I click on the screen here, you see it has these various tags in square brackets, right? So we have skip, we have state, we have all of these things. And if I open this thing here, we have two frames. You see, that's called the frame. This thing is called the frame, and it's basically a container. And they have these tags here, and that is because this specific template comes to us from Bravo Studio. If you get any other template from a community or you build your own template, it's not going to have these tags. So this is already ready for Bravo. And just to give you an example, we have this top bar, and it says here container top bar. And that way Bravo Studio will know that that is a top bar. It should not, make repeatable, or it should have a certain type of behavior. This is your regular container, and it says container, and this is something that you can make repeatable, which is something that we're going to do in just a minute. So if I open this up, we also have various elements. And this is just like a container, a component that you will have in FlutterFlow or pretty much any other app builder, right? We have a container, we have all of these elements, and I can design them, right? I can change how they look. I can change all of these things. I can click on here and I can go, change the fill color. I can change the location. I can change all of these things. I can do pretty much anything that I want to make it look the way I want, okay? But it's important for me to have these tags. It's important for me to let Bravo know that this is a container. That way I can have a list and they can make it repeatable, okay? So another important tag is this skip. We have instructions. It says skip, which means that ignore this thing right here, right? If you come in here, this instructions, this obviously should not be anywhere in the app, right? This is just instructions to the user. And so if we come in here, we have another page 2 screen here, and it says here state default page 2 status bar dark, right? It's basically instructions to Bravo Studio of the things that you can do. And if you want to know like all the tags there are, basically the capabilities, all the things that you can do, you can Google for something called Bravo Tags Master List. And this is a list of all the tags that you can use inside of your app when you're designing the app. And it's gonna be a good way to kind of let you know of the capabilities of the things that you can do, right? We have menus, different menus, tabs menu, no tabs menu, right? And this is the Bravo tag. This is where you know where to label the tag, top level, any layer, the tag type, etc., etc. We also have, containers, different type of containers. We have a top bar. Remember, we just looked at a top bar right here, right? We have this top bar right here, right? This is this top bar right here. So there's lots and lots of tags. And when you're building the app, I do not recommend just memorizing all the tags. Whenever you need some functionality, you need some capability to do something, you can come to this page and you can see if there's a tag that does exactly that. Like we have play audio. You can specify URL and you can say action play, and that could be a mobile action. And what is it? Plays the MP3 audio track. When this element is visible, the pause element will be invisible, and vice versa, etc., etc. So you can build fairly sophisticated apps with all of these tags. You also have Firebase integration, and you essentially have a lot of the functionality that a lot of modern apps have. So you have forms as well. You have a lot of really good things. All right. So you can take a look. You can refer to this while you're building the app. All right. And so now, assuming we've built the UI, we also added the tags to the UI. The next thing that we need to do in order to actually build the app is we need to go into share and we need to copy the link, because we need to give this Figma file to Bravo Studio, and it's going to go out and build the app for us. All right. And here I am back in Bravo Studio. I'm going to go into apps. I'm going to say create new app, and I'm going to paste the Figma file that I just shared back in Figma, and I'm going to say connect Bravoized Figma file. It says Bravoized, which means it has those templates, okay? Because without the templates, Bravo is not going to know what to do with all of those screens, all right? I'm going to say connect, and it's connecting with Figma and getting my designs. And now I have the app here in Bravo Studio, right? This is kind of the app here, and I'm seeing all the screens, at least the screens that I did not specify to skip, and I've given other instructions that they should not be included. And the next thing that you want to do is you want to connect this app to your data source, okay? So if you go into API collections, these are our data sources, okay? So if I say create a new collection, I have all of these options here. So let's go over these options real quick. We can start from scratch, and this is a way to specify API calls, okay? The next option is to connect to Airtable, okay? And this is amazing because I've never seen many app builders that give you a direct connection to Airtable. You typically have to do it using an API, so this is nice. You have something called the Xano wizard. You have an open API, you have a Postman import, and you have a Swagger import, okay? So all of these are basically formats of importing your project. So if you use Postman, and I've used Postman in some of the other videos, and you have a whole API there, you have a whole collection, you can just import that entire collection there. Swagger is a standard, right? If you're using tools that generate something called a Swagger file, you can just import bulk requests, which is awesome. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, I actually went out and I went to mockapi.io and I created a fake API, okay? So I created a new resource. It has 50 random items, So if I say edit, I basically have an ID, I have created ad, I have a name and avatar. So it's basically 50 random personas, right? 50 random kind of people. And if I click on data, this is the results, right? I have ID1, ID2, I have a name, Raphael Khan, Randolph, Richard, Miss Cara. So I have 50 fake personas that I created using this tool, a third-party tool, that we're gonna integrate into our Bravo Studio app. So if I come in here, I copied this. I have an endpoint called items, which means I can just go in here and say items. And that's gonna make a request to our endpoint, and we're gonna get all the items. Now, the other thing that I can do is I can say items and specify the ID. Let's say I want the item of ID of 1. And that way I'm gonna get Randolph. Let's say I want ID of 2. I'm gonna get Raphael, okay? And so my fake API is now complete. I also have ways of deleting different items, of modifying different items, stuff like that. So it's a full featured API that's complete. So the next thing that we want to do is, if we follow this diagram, we need to add our data source into the app, and then we're going to have an app that does exactly what we want. And so if we go back into Bravo Studio, I'm going to say start from scratch, okay? And I'm going to call this our API, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one request that's going to list all the users, okay? Just a sample request. We're going to paste it here. I'm going to say items, and we're going to call this get items, okay? Now I can hit send, and once I do that, I get data, okay? So I'm basically, it's displaying all of them, but it's also telling me some of the things that we're getting, right? So, it got the name, the avatar, etc., etc. And so here we need to select the items that we need inside of our app. And in this case, we need all of them. We need all the items, but we also need the individual fields. So I'm just going to select all of them, okay? So if I go into select the data, this is kind of what I'm seeing. I can also assign different variables to these fields, which is very, very nice, okay? So unlike with FlutterFlow, I don't actually need to go out and to find it automatically. This tool understands the API. It sent a request, and now it understands it, assigned them values. It even says, well, this is a list. Okay, so that's all we need to do. I don't need to save it. I don't need any of this. It's done. We have our one API call. So if I go back into apps and this app that we created, and let's say I have this template here, and here I want to list all of them. And essentially I want to repeat this item through, because this is a list, right? I just click on it. Now, we don't care about the top bar. We want the container list. That's what we care about. And here we have a container. I pick a collection API. I have a request get items, and I pick data, because remember we picked data, which has all the items. And now I have data, and now I can come to title or image. I can come to image, and I can say, well, image is going to be an avatar, right? Title is going to be a name, and a subtitle, well, we only have ID left, or created that. I'm just going to say ID, okay? And that's all we need to do. Now we have one element bound. Now it has data bound, okay? And now we can actually preview the app. Now, before we preview the app, I want to show you something. You see how it says top bar and container list and then all of these things. If I go back into my Figma and I go back to the screen, this is this screen right here, right? Let me zoom in. You see how when we designed it, that's how we designed it. We have a container list, and we have these items, right? Now, this is standard Figma, which is how you would design any user interface. And which is nice because it understands that this is a container, and then it has a bunch of these items, which is awesome because now I can use like an industry standard tool for designing UI interfaces. And Bravo Studio is going to understand that this is a container, and then you need to replace these items, which is fantastic. And so let me go back into the app. It automatically saves, which is not the case with some of the other tools. So that's another really nice thing, that it saves automatically. And so let's go ahead and preview the app, okay? And so here it says we can preview the app on your phone. I can click this. And in order to preview the app, you need to first download an app called Bravo Vision. Once you download the app, you connect it to your Bravo Studio account, And then all you have to do is get your phone and point it at that QR code. So I'm going to do that right now. All right, I'm loading up the app right here. And here's the app that we built. Now it has 4 tabs, 4 screens linking to the tabs. And the first page is the page that we built on the screen, right? We have the users, we have the avatar, we have the name, and we have the ID. Now, just to show you that it works, let's say we modify the subtitle to display created at. Okay, so this is saved. My app automatically reloads. And now, as you can see, it displays the actual created time. And so if I modify the title, I want to modify it to ID, right? That's it. It automatically saves and it automatically reloads on my phone. And now we're seeing the image, the ID instead of the name, and all the other variables. So it's very, very quick. It's very, very quick to reload, to see your changes, okay? And so that was a quick demo of how you can take a template that was created for us, possibly modify it in Figma, go back into Bravo Studio, connect it with a data source, and have a sample app running. Now, a few things that's important to mention. A lot of things, a lot of the logic, a lot of things that are happening with the app is actually done in Figma. So for instance, if I go in here and I click on prototype, I have something called the Flow 1. And Flow 1 essentially connects to the screen that needs to be the first screen that's displayed when the user loads the app. So in this case, this is this page. If I drag this and I drag this to this screen and I go back to the app here and I refresh it, update to the latest Sigma design, the first screen that's going to be displayed is going to be this app here. So now the app is reloading and we are going to be seeing a different screen now. So a lot of the logic that you're going to be doing is going to be done in Figma. And so as a result, not only do you need to understand how Bravo Studio works, but you also need to understand how Figma works. Now, granted, it's not a very, very complex tool. It took me a couple of hours to really get up to speed on it and really learn enough to get me started and start using this tool, kind of, hit the ground running, so to speak. The other thing that you will need to learn are the tags. The tags are kind of the logic factor here in the sense that they specify what each specific page does, how it's displayed, the behavior of the buttons, the capabilities such as play audio, you have various actions, stuff like that. And rest assured, you have enough tags here, enough kind of logic elements here that's going to ensure that you'll be able to build any kind of app that you want. And so that was a quick overview of Bravo Studio. You start in Figma, you design the app, you take it back into Bravo Studio, you connect it with a data source, and you preview the app, and then you launch the app, and now you have the app. All right, now let me share with you some of the closing thoughts. Let's talk about some of the things that I really liked about this tool. Now, the first thing that I really liked about this tool is the fact that it connects with Figma, right? So if I go into Figma, and let's say I go into community, it's amazing what kind of community there is, right? And granted, I wasn't even aware of this tool before because I'm not really a designer, but I think design has been kind of my weak point when it comes to developing all of these apps, right? And with a lot of these tools, you're given templates, you're given pages, but with Figma, it's on another level completely. So for instance, we have a booking UX UI, we have a coffee shop mobile, you have an NFT marketplace. And so the key here is that the design stuff is taken care for you. And I really can't say the same when it comes to some of these other tools, because in my view, I mean, just look at all of these designs. They're just amazing, right? You have so many screens. You have a crypto wallet, app UI kit, you have an e-commerce, you have this, you have that. Now, granted, some of these projects, you'll have to pay just a little bit to get the full package, but still, even paying like $10 or $15 for me is a no-brainer if I can have professionally made UI screens, UI elements that I can go out and modify and build a truly amazing, a really, really beautiful app. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a big, big benefit to developing using Figma, to kind of developing using this Bravo Studio. Another huge benefit of Bravo Studio is all of these sample apps. So you can build a CRM, a Foodgram, a Home B&B, which is the Airbnb clone, a Tasks, Soundify, Journals, Shopify, Foodies, and these are all simple apps that you can go out, you can duplicate, and you can start working with. Now, if you click on Functionalities, you can learn how to implement various pieces of logic, such as conditional actions, swipe to delete, swipe pages, skeleton loaders, which is actually really, really cool. I always wondered, how do people do that? Like a skeleton load, a checkbox, Stripe payments, all of these things. So you can actually open it up, and that's going to give you ideas as to how you can implement all of that inside your own app. And for me, that is incredible. So there's lots and lots of interesting things that you can do for sure. Now, when it comes to some of the things that I didn't notice that this tool supports, is definitely the data stuff, right? You're basically asked to create your app from an API, okay? There's no internal database, there's no hookups to some other system, and so you can connect to Airtable, you can import from a Swagger, Postman, a lot of these things, but there's no way to quickly build a internal database. But on the other hand, is that really a con when you can go to Airtable and build a database there and then import it? And that's actually the case when you're using some of the sample apps. So for instance, with a Home B&B, when you duplicate this app, you're going to have a sample app, this Home B&B, right? And this is actually a link to your Airtable, to a publicly available Airtable that you can pull up data from. So in my view, that's not really like a disadvantage. It's a different way of building. All in all, I can't really say that Bravo Studio is better or worse than some of the other tools. It's just different. It's a completely different paradigm. It's a completely different way of building apps. Like I said, I really like the fact that you have access to a lot of these professional-made templates on Figma. I like the fact that you can connect to an Airtable directly. I like the fact that you can connect to any kind of API source without entering the API calls manually. You can just import a Swagger file or any of that, and that's very, very powerful. And so in closing, I want to say that it took me a little bit of time to kind of wrap my head around some of the ways of building apps, around the architecture of kind of building apps with Bravo Studio. But now that I understand this tool, I kind of like how it works. I kind of like that you can import templates from other places and have an app built very, very quickly using your data in Airtable, for instance. And so whether this is a tool that you may want to put in your toolbox would really depend on how you feel about the whole workflow. But regardless, I definitely urge you to go out to Bravo Studio and play around with this tool a little bit, just to do something different, just to get a different perspective on ways of building apps. Who knows, maybe you'll end up liking it a lot. And so that was my quick overview of Bravo Studio. I will definitely be making a more comprehensive video in the near future, just to show you how to implement some of the more complex use cases, some of the more complex logic expressions in order to build a more complex app. Now, if you enjoy this content and you want to take your no-code knowledge to the next level, definitely check out my Patreon page. On my Patreon page, you will find all my FlutterFlow apps that I built previously. You're going to get access to extra content, such as live streams, Q&As, and also a lot of extra things that I will not be publishing on the main channel. And so if you're serious about no-code, joining my Patreon is a great way to take your knowledge and skills to the next level. And also it's a great way to support the channel and support my work. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in a future video.